All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Jaron Mink. I'm a fourth-year PhD candidate from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. And today, I'm really excited to present our findings on how end users perceive and interact with artificially generated profiles in online social networks. So today, fake online profiles are being used to deceive users and achieve malicious goals on a large scale. Just recently, attackers have successfully used fake profiles to produce and propagate false narratives with fake profiles and fake journalists, target and connect with high-valued political leaders with fake politicians, and message potential customers with fake salespersons. Concerningly, however, a large number of these successful campaigns have begun to use deep learning-generated outputs, or deepfakes, within these fake profiles. Until recently, fake profiles were often created in one of two primary ways: automation, in which a bot is created via a hard-coded template, or human labor, in which a person manually creates a convincing profile with substantial effort. And this has created an interesting trade-off for attackers. They can either create high-quality or easily scalable profiles. However, advances in machine learning has begun to shift this curve, allowing attackers to begin to achieve both with deepfakes. Deepfakes are realistic, non-templated media generated from a deep learning network. Networks like StyleGAN 2 and 3 create realistic images of human faces, while language models such as GPT-2 and GPT-3 can create text that appears to be written by a real human. And while the quality of synthetic content is improving, deepfake models still produce human-perceivable artifacts. These artifacts may include distorted and asymmetric accessories in generated images, grammatical or semantic errors in generated text, or inconsistencies that might arise between these independently generated outputs when used together in a social profile. But despite this, attackers still find benefits in using deepfakes. This media can be used to create realistic and unique social profiles at scale, which can then be used to deceive and connect with users to achieve some malicious goal, often financial scams, the pushing of disinformation, or the establishment of a reputation for some future harm. However, it's generally unknown whether the presence of deepfake artifacts or an understanding of deepfake techniques by the users might affect an end user's perception of these profiles or their behavior towards an encountered profile. To this, we ask three primary research questions. First, does the presence of deepfake artifacts influence users' perceived trustworthiness of these profiles or their decision to accept or reject a connection request from these profiles? Similarly, does the user priming or training influence user perception of these profiles or their behavior towards these profiles? And third, what strategies do users actually perform to assess these profiles and make these determinations? To answer these questions, we run an experimentally controlled user study. In this study, participants role-play as a LinkedIn user that's received connection requests from several unknown profiles. To investigate the effect of prior user knowledge, participants first read one of three prompts with varying deepfake warnings and knowledge. To investigate, the participant will then view three profiles, users that claim to be unknown coworkers at different departments of their company. And while these profiles are all carefully constructed, all content either stems from real-world data or generated deepfakes. For instance, the primary experience and education section are sampled from a public resume dataset, and the name is randomly chosen from a pool of gender-neutral first names. However, the self-summary and the image are created from either a generated deepfake or a real piece of human data. For instance, the profile image is either sampled from a real public dataset of human faces or generated from a facial generation algorithm. Similarly, the summary text is either human-written or deepfake generated. For each of these profiles, participants report their trust in the profile, whether they will accept or reject a connection request, and their reasoning for their behavior. To determine the effect of these deepfake-generated artifacts, participants are viewed profiles which are carefully controlled to display a varied set of deepfake-induced inconsistencies. To construct a baseline, we created a set of profiles that did not contain any deepfake artifacts. To investigate the effects of deepfake mistakes within a single field, we created profiles with intra-field artifacts. Profiles with intra-field image artifacts either had an image with a distorted accessory or colorful blobs attached, while profiles with interfield text artifacts contained a malformed piece of generated text with repetitive words and phrases, incorrect grammar, or an illogical flow of ideas. To investigate the effect of mismatches between fields, we created a set of profiles with interfield artifacts. Profiles with interfield image artifacts contained a user image that was far too young for their experiences, while profile with interfield text artifacts contained an about summary with incorrect references to other portions of the profile. During this task, participants saw one consistent profile, one profile with an interfield artifact, and one profile with an intrafield artifact. For a second controlled condition, we determined the effect of interventions, like deepfake training, by treating participants with varying amounts of deepfake prompts. Participants either received a no prompt, which contained only a role-playing scenario, a soft prompt, which warned participants that some profiles may contain AI-generated media, but did not provide any specifics on what they might look like, or a hard prompt, which informs participants that some profiles may be AI-generated and also includes a detailed tutorial describing these deepfake techniques and common artifacts that appear within them. Overall, we had 286 participants from MTurk who each viewed this role-playing scenario, one of these 3 prompts, viewed and responded to 3 profile connection requests, and completed a post-task survey. We can largely summarize user behavior by plotting the acceptance rate on the y-axis by our controlled conditions on the x-axis, in this case, the deepfake artifact that's present in the perceived profile. We find that users largely accept connection requests from consistent profiles with a rate of 87%. But as we view the rates for other conditions, we find that rates vary from 80 to 62%. Via binary mixed effects regression modeling, we find that compared to consistent profiles, all deepfake artifacts significantly decrease users' acceptance of their profile. Thus, profiles with deepfake-induced inconsistencies are less likely to be accepted by end users. Interestingly, though, these artifacts don't perform uniformly. In particular, we find a difference between the intrafield image artifact and the interfield image artifact, with malformed images having significantly lower acceptance rate than images that just appeared too young. We further investigate the reason for this difference by looking at participant-reported behavior. Through open responses, we find that differences in acceptance between artifacts likely stem from differences in artifact attributability. Intrafield image artifacts, the artifact with the largest effect size, was often seen as anomalous by participants. As these artifacts don't have a plausible, benign explanation, participants are either confused if they did not have knowledge of deepfakes, or if they did, were able to directly identify them as deepfakes. In contrast, a young generated image, the artifact with the smallest effect size, was not viewed as anomalous. Only one participant noted that an inconsistency in age existed, but even then didn't appear to relate it to a fake image. We hypothesized that several participants may have misattributed this to an outdated photo and thus wasn't generally considered a concern for them. By plotting the acceptance rates by the prompt users are exposed to, we can see the rough trends of this type of intervention. In particular, we find that the soft intervention of warning participants of deepfake's existence is enough for them to significantly decrease their acceptance of profiles. But interestingly, we find that compared to the soft prompt, the hard prompt didn't significantly further decrease the acceptance of user profiles. This may imply that a soft nudge is enough for users to begin to protect themselves from these types of threats. But despite these decreases, we still find that users are largely vulnerable. If we group the data by both the prompt and the artifact condition, we can see that in every treatment, at least 43% of participants accept the connection requests. Thus, despite significant changes in behavior, a large proportion of participants are still vulnerable to deepfake-based social engineering attacks. We also find similar patterns for the perceived trust of these profiles. But due to time constraints, we won't be able to cover this, but we encourage interested readers to check out the full paper. After viewing these sections, participants report searching profile content to make a determination of whether to accept or reject a profile. And we find that participants follow 2 primary strategies in doing so. First, some participants try to identify personal qualities in a perceived profile. Participants typically determine if a connection is beneficial by trying to assess whether the profile is successful at their job or simply a friendly person. And they typically found this via the content of the experience section, the content and tone of their self-summary, or the image that they believe that the profile owner chose to display. Second, some participants explicitly try to identify if a profile is legitimate. And while some of these strategies intentionally look for generative artifacts in the image and text content, others simply tried to determine if a profile was bot-like and had generic copy and pasted descriptions. Additionally, some participants weren't concerned with fake profiles, but were concerned about dishonest content by real people. And these strategies included searching for exaggerations, lies, or falsified facts about a real person. Additionally, we found that prompting appeared to affect the usage of these strategies by our participants. In general, when prompted, participants focused less on strategies that searched for personal qualities in another and promoted strategies that searched for inconsistencies in others. And unfortunately, we find that this prompting might also induce antisocial behavior by users. In particular, several participants appear to overcompensate while searching for deepfakes and believe they found evidence of deepfakes in real, consistent profiles. For instance, one participant hyperfixates on the shoulder of a person in a real profile image, incorrectly identifying them as a malformed deepfake and the reason for their rejection. And concerningly, we also noticed that some of these perceptions appear to stem from racial or gender expectations. For instance, one participant incorrectly becomes suspicious as they perceive that the name and image of a profile were stereotypically held by persons of different gender and racial identities. And this highlights a salient point. Encouraging users to try to differentiate between real and fake profiles may instead cause them to differentiate between individuals that do and do not follow their perceptions of what is average or normal. Thus, prompting users in this way may exacerbate held stereotypes and disproportionately affect those who do not follow them. From these insights, we provide several recommendations for platforms dealing with these threats. First, given the low efficacy and possible harms, we currently do not recommend the use of user deepfake warnings at this time. And instead, more research should be devoted to discover if one can retain the benefits of user warnings without promoting harmful and possibly discriminatory user strategies. Second, we encourage platforms to emphasize action via trained moderators and bias-evaluated detection algorithms to ensure that these profiles are removed before they reach users and cause disproportionate harm. Lastly, we encourage the open measurement and use of deepfakes to better understand their characteristics, targets, and behaviors. Thanks so much, and I'll be happy to take any questions.